It's almost like he's a vigilante of sorts. You know what I mean? How many times has your dad been arrested, or you? Have you guys
He's
both
been
been arrested?
arrested. He's been arrested a half a dozen to a dozen times, but they were all by design.
Right.
We went that day, knew that what was being arrested was part of the plan. There was somebody already there to bail him out.
Okay.
But,
And
back then as well, we were really seen as the the cusp. We're the fringe.
of
It's
course.
just my dad and me in front of an aquarium protesting. There's nobody else there, and so if you get arrested, that's going to get the news there. And like, how do you get on TV? How do you get this issue out there? It's like you do it, you have to, because back then there was nobody protesting. It was not an issue. It was always in the newspaper. SeaWorld says, or blah 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 aquarium says, and the Dolphin Project accuses. We were always on the defense, like our word wasn't as good as their word because they're the experts, because they have, you know what I mean? Like, they're seen as the
Yeah.
experts. They have dolphins in their place.
Mm-hmm.
Where we've totally flipped that script now. Now it's completely the other way around. Like, what's happened in the past 10 years has just been a revolution. And it took 40 years of work to make. We've made it now part of pop culture for it not to be popular to have dolphins in captivity. We've been spoofed on Family Guy, on South Park, on The Simpsons. They've all done Cove or Blackfish themed episodes. Harry Styles in concert said, "Don't go to SeaWorld." 50 million girls the next day, they don't even know what SeaWorld is. They just know God just spoke. There's a place called SeaWorld, and they're never going there.
Right.
It's like, so that's like when you hit that level of pop culture, we've just flipped that script. And it's like all these places are just kind of a dying, archaic, like they're built on a model from like the 1950s, like roadside, like biggest ball of twine. See the big lumberjack. See, Wiki Wachi in Sarasota, like the mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins on, doing performing stupid tricks. Like, it's all this model that's phasing out.
Where are we today in regards to captivity of whales and dolphins in places like SeaWorld compared to, say,
Well,
10 years ago?
it just depends where you live. Like, um, places that we're working really hard. Like, we have a big project in Indonesia. There I'm seeing it collapsing, and we're shutting down places, and we're confiscating animals. But then you go to a country like China, they're building a new city the size of Miami every week, a new city they're building from scratch, the whole city of everything. And they're coming online, and that city wants to have an aquarium, so you see a huge growth of aquariums in China right now, huge.
Really?
Um, yeah, because they're literally building entire cities at once right now, and they're building them all over the place. And so, they're building everything at once: all the movie theaters, the aquarium, there are aquariums popping up. That's probably the biggest. Right now, the main, most famous exporter of dolphins is Japan, and that's where you see that in the movie The Cove.
Right.
Probably Japan is probably the number one customer for Japan because they have many dolphinariums. I think Japan is like the size of California, and they've got more dolphinariums than our country does. They have like 50 or 60, and most of them are pretty bad. So they're disposable dolphins, so they buy them all the time, and they get a certain price when they sell them inside Japan. But when they export them to China is when they get the maximum price.
Which
And
is like in the hundreds of thousands, right?
they're probably the number two buyer of dolphins after Japan itself.
Are they still getting up to like 150 grand for a dolphin that goes into a tank for for people to come
Oh,
by and watch it?
you're in Taiji, Japan. Taiji is where they're slaughtering them, and there's a market there locally in the village for eating dolphins.
Right.
Neighboring villages don't eat dolphins. It's more of a localized thing in this village.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you kill a dolphin and you hack it all up, it's worth about $500 in meat. But if they take that same dolphin and export it to China, trained, if they break the dolphin and have some basic training, they can get up to 132,000 is what we've seen. We've seen, a sale for that much per dolphin. Depending on the amount of training, untrained maybe 30,000, and maybe 30,000 is the price inside of Japan for the dolphin. So
Mm-hmm.
clearly, the captivity is the underpinning of the slaughter, because at $500 a dolphin, these guys couldn't really sustain the lifestyles that they have. These are some of the richest guys, these fishermen in the village of Japan, Taiji. They drive the nicest cars because they're selling captive dolphins, and they're selling them for an incredible amount of money.
And even in the movie, there's one point I think I remember when.
I mean, there's days when they catch 20, 30, 40 dolphins at once. If you're thinking every 10 dolphin that they could potentially maximum get up, that's $1.2 million every 10 dolphin. That's like a day, an afternoon's work to go catch 10 dolphins.
It's ridiculous.
So split between all the guys, it's like a pretty lucrative business. And the meat, less people are eating the meat, so there's no way they can survive on that. It's the captivity that drives it. And what for people that are listening that don't know about the Cove, the Cove is a documentary, and it's about a place in Japan, a very particular village, very remote. And this village is the birthplace of whaling. Whaling has been going on there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It's basically the birthplace of modern whaling is in this village. But in the late 1950s, they started hunting dolphins. So it is not a traditional, hunting whales is traditional and cultural in Japan. Hunting dolphins is not traditional whatsoever. It started in the late 50s after the war. And they basically go out, it's 12 boats, and they look for pods of dolphins. And when they see them, the boats will get into they'll form like a horseshoe shape. And they'll have these poles that are coming from the top of the boat where they're driving the boat down into the water. And where the pole goes in the water, it flanges out like the end of a trumpet. And so they bang on that pole with like a metal wrench while they're driving the boat in this horseshoe shape. And it creates a wall of sound. And with that wall of sound, they drive the dolphins many miles from the open ocean into the cove in Taiji. And forever, we knew dolphins were dying there. But the way the landscape is, where they kill the dolphins, you physically can't see it. They blocked off any entrance to it from the road, the beach. You can't see around this part where we know they're dying, but we just couldn't see it. And so the Cove movie, we were able to finally expose what's going on in that cove. And we were able to we worked with Industrial Light and Magic, who does all the Star Wars films, and we made rocks that matched exactly the rocks they have in Japan, and we hid cameras in them, and we went with like a special ops team in the middle of the night and hid microphones and cameras everywhere underwater and trees and drones, and we're able to film for the first time in high definition like what goes on there. And what happens, it's a horrendous slaughter where they basically just drive a spike through the dolphin's head. And what they're doing now is they actually, as soon as they pull the spike out, they put a cork in the hole so the blood doesn't flow out, so we can't get those graphic images anymore of the bay filling with blood. And they've now taken a tarp. They have wires that run across the cove so they can run a tarp across and create like a little sheltered area. Because now we go there as the Dolphin Project. We're there every day during the dolphin hunting season. And with drones, with monitors, we're there every single day. We live stream exactly what's going on, and they try every way to block it. And but it's still going on. It just ended on March 1st, and it runs
every year. It's still happening.
Every year. It begins September 1st through March, and there's a quota. They have, I think it's about an estimate 8 to 9 species or 7 species that they actually get a quota per animal for each species, how many they're allowed to slaughter. And they try to meet that quota. And then they also have orders for dolphins, and they'll try to fill those orders.